You've only been playing 4 years?
Yeah.
No kidding.
I played one summer when I was a kid, but then I never had time to play again. So I have been playing about 4 years.
Okay.
I finally shot an 81 this summer, which I was just ecstatic about.
That's great after one.
And, you know, for me, I mean, I'm like everybody else. I want some consistency. But I'll tell you what I really want more than anything. I want you to give me thoughts in the swing that I can relate to as I do it. I'm a real kinetic guy.
Okay.
So I started out with Golf Tech. They did a great job. First time I ever played after taking 4 months with Golf Tech, I shot a 45 for 9.
Wow.
And I thought, you know, I mean, I'm 67, so I was 60, I'm almost 68. I was 63 then. I thought, you know, this is pretty good. And the guy said, this is terrible. And I said, what do you mean it's terrible? He said, well, because you're probably not going to do this again for a while. And I said, oh, well, thanks a lot, dude. But anyway, I've hit 1 million golf balls. I'm glad I waited until I retired to do this. I've hit 1 million golf balls, you know, but I need a thought that tells me this to this to this to this.
Sure.
If I can do that, I'm good.
Gotcha. Well, so how did you come up with Rotary Swing? How did you end up with us?
Like everybody else, you know, I've looked at everything else on the internet. I've taken 1,000, well, I haven't taken 1,000 lessons. I actually have a guy who was on the tour who is a pro at our place now, and he's helped me some. He had me use more arm than body, which really bothered me. You know, I can muscle through something. I'm one of those guys, I can muscle through snowboarding, I can muscle through skiing, I can muscle through golf, but it's not, you can't muscle golf.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can smack the ball for my age, but I'm not consistent because I'm muscling through it.
Exactly.
So I've gone through and I looked, and there you were. Rotary golf, it made sense to me. You know, more body rotation, less arm. And so that's how we're here.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, let me watch you hit a couple. I'll
Okay.
try to get them on video. I'm not sure that I'll be able to fully get the whole thing.
Yeah, you know, I probably don't want you to. I think my biggest disappointment in putting this in is that I haven't put in video.
Yeah.
You want me to use a 7-hour?
Yeah, that's fine.
I didn't put in video. Probably should have put a big mirror over there.
Mirror right here, a mirror right there.
I've got a mirror out in I'll take you out to my gym. I've got a mirror in the gym.
Gotcha.
And I swing every day.
Yeah.
I'll work out and I swing. Sadly, it hasn't brought me where I want to be.
Sure.
So,
Well, we'll get you there.
yeah, I hope so. Well, there you have it.
Well, your first lesson.
I hit that one solidly, didn't I?
I inspired you so much you broke the shaft at the
Isn't that
hosel.
crazy?
And
I've hit
this,
that-
boys and girls, is what Rotary Swing can do.
I've hit this club 1,000, more than that, 10,000
It
times.
sheared.
It did. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Thank God it didn't go through the screen.
No kidding.
I think I'll use my 8-iron.
We don't need the 7.
I use my 6.
Holy cow.
That's the craziest.
Now the important
I'm telling
thing
you,
is, did I get that on video?
I can muscle through
You weren't kidding.
anything. That's just crazy, isn't it?
Oh my god. Yeah, you can't tell that the head flew off.
Can't tell?
No.
Oh,
But your
that's-
follow through stopped short. You
that's
have
a
all the
dis-
mass on the club to pull you around.
That's a real disappointment, I'm telling you.
Man, you don't need to work out anymore. We got
No,
that part
I
covered.
don't. You know, I'm going to tell you, 2 months ago I tore my glute. My right glute. And I did it doing 2 things. I changed my golf swing so I had more rotation with more push off on my right. And I mean, I was working out. I work out every day. And I just was doing a ton of leg and I tore my glute.
Oh my gosh.
And it blew up like a small watermelon.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, which was great. I've had that hip replaced, and I was a little nervous to begin with because I was afraid maybe it had gotten infected 3 years later.
Oh yeah.
But
all right, let's take a look here. I can't get it perfect because we didn't quite have that much room to see. We'll get down the line first. Setup here looks pretty good. As you go back,
I go back just like I always do. I've worked on that 1,000 times. I take it straight back.
yeah, so the trick is when people struggle with this and this right arm breaking down, the club going inside and all
Right.
that, you know that you're going to stop turning because your arms have too much momentum, right?
Right.
They're taking over everything. So the trick to get out of this is to understand where you got to move from, right? You
Okay.
can't, as you understand, you can't tell yourself, don't do this, don't do that. Your brain
Right.
doesn't understand that stuff. So I got to get you something to focus on to feel the right thing, and that's what we're going to do to start fixing this
Okay.
takeaway so it doesn't go so far inside. Not too bad at the top. We got a little bit of a flying right elbow and a pretty big hip turn there. So as your right knee straightens up, let's see if I draw a quick line here. So right there is where your right knee is in the
Mhm.
dress. Look how much it moves immediately.
Yeah.
So all that means is when that knee straightens up, that your hips can over-rotate right away.
Okay.
If your hips over-rotate, you know they got to get, let's just say they're square to dress, and then let's say they're 30, 40 degrees closed at the top of the backswing, and they've got to go from 30 to 40 degrees closed to 30 to 40 degrees open in a
Mhm.
quarter of a second, right? Well, yours aren't 40 degrees closed, they're maybe 60 degrees closed. So
Right.
you just got that much more that you've got to try to unwind from. And so if you're, especially if you tore your glute, you're going to have to push off your right leg to help get your hips back around
Right.
fast enough. So we want to tighten that up because that also, when your hips over-rotate like this going back, that also lets the club suck inside.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things go hand in hand. So, otherwise, coming down, arms are all taken over there a little bit too much. So, you notice how you kind of start to stand up right there?
Yeah.
Well, you can see it partly because you've made such a big hip turn, so I can see that big space between your legs,
Mm-hmm.
that now as you start down, your knees, lower body, need to move really, really quickly. Because I talk about this ratio of like how much your lower body moves at this during this transition and how much your hands move. Ideally, your hands are going to feel like they just kind of stay up there at the top, and your lower body is the only thing that's moving. But if you watch your hands, in this same amount of time, we're going to move a foot, and your knee's going to move an inch.
Right.
So by sheer math, there's not going to be nearly enough time for your hips to get out of the way. So you can't use your lower body to help pull your hands down. You're always going to be firing your arms. And we've compounded it by turning our hips so much. So now we've got all these little things that are starting to add up to what's going to lead to your golf swing. You're going to stand up out of there because your hips didn't clear out of the way.
Right.
So, and then it's just a big, armsy move coming down from there. We're going to fix that. Let's take a look face on here. Let's go back. I think you're starting to reverse pivot there a little bit. Getting pretty long and collapse at the top. So we want to tighten that stuff up. I'm going to show you how to do all of that.
Okay.
And then the shoulders are what are unwinding everything down. So we're gonna do a few things to tackle several things at once. There's a right arm standing up out of it there. So, all right, so here's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
First things first, the swing has always got to get started off on the right foot.
Right.
If it doesn't, then it's just going to be a bunch of compensations from there. So what I want to do first is get your lower body to be stable. So that right knee is going to stop straightening up, letting your hips over-rotate going back.
Mhm.
Once we do that, then we can start worrying about what your arms and upper body is doing to take the club back to keep it from going so far inside. Once that's fixed, then we can worry about the transition to get your lower body to lead, and that will fix all the other stuff going on. So it's
Okay.
going to be kind of like 3 phases here. So go ahead and set up for me, but without a golf club. And just throw that down. Put your arms across your chest. We're going to do a couple little things first. Narrow your stance just a hair. There you go. All right. So when you go back, I'm just going to hold your knee for a second. I want you to rotate back. Okay. So notice I held your knee in here, and I told you to rotate back. And your idea of rotation was to turn your hips and shift your weight to the left side. Look how much your belt buckle's turned already.
Right.
So go back to address. Now turn again. That's a turn.
But you see how limited that is?
Yeah, we're not done, but you've got to turn this first, and then as you keep turning this, then your hips are going to get pulled in.
Okay.
So what you did originally was this, right?
Right.
So now you don't stretch any of these muscles in your core because you're just moving this all together as one unit. We want to lengthen and stretch and activate these muscles, your obliques there, so that as you're beginning to rotate, it's this that rotates on top of your lower body first. So this is going to be quiet, that's why I was grabbing your knee. There you go. and keep turning as you shift your weight, your hip to the right. There you go. So not your head. This is where a lot of people make a mistake. When they start to learn to shift their weight, and you say, no, I've got to shift my weight to the right a little bit, they start moving their upper body to do it. It's your lower body that's moving to the right. Just a small amount, but it's going to look like it never moves because while it's moving to the right, you're also rotating your hips. So it looks like, if you had a mirror here face on, this hip would never move from where it is. I'm going to hold this, so go ahead and set up again. I'm going to hold this right here to dress, and your hip should never move off of it. Now look where your hips moved.
Yeah,
So what that means is what we call a reverse hip shift.
right,
So you're going, I'm going to exaggerate, you're going like this. So your weight's actually going this way, and this is not a very athletic position to do anything from, right?
Right.
It's an awkward position. So you want to be like a baseball player. You're going to load up on your right leg, so your hip has got to move to the right just a hair, enough to keep your hip on this line. There you go. Now do you feel much more weight on your right leg
Yeah.
than you used to?
I do this 1,000 times a day, Joe.
Okay.
I'm not shitting you.
Yeah?
I mean, I'm like every other guy. I can stand here and give you a pretty good, pretty good turn
Uh-huh.
until I get a club in my hand, and then the weight shift goes to hell. If I do it correctly, I hammer it like everyone else does.
Yeah. So the trick is when you've got that club in your hands, the focus point typically changes, right?
Correct.
Instead of focusing on, okay, I need to feel my right glute and my right shoulder blade, it goes to ball, club,
Right.
results, right? That's the whole point where everybody goes off. Your focus point, no matter what, when you're out on the course, you're playing, you're hitting balls, you're in here, it needs to be on these muscle movements until you can sit here and do these muscle movements, tell me what you had for breakfast, and not screw it up, right?
Okay.
So when I watched you do it, you still, even without a golf club or balls, you still did this reverse hip shift. So we haven't done it right enough times for our brain to build that
No, but
pathway.
we've done it wrong enough
We've done it
times.
wrong. That's the catch, right?
Right.
So like if I did this and I had to demonstrate what you were doing, I would have to kind of think about how would I reverse shift my hips over here, right?
Mhm.
But instead for me, because I've done it enough, just doing it this way, that feels normal to me.
So should I stand here and rotate over my right leg?
You are pivoting on that right hip socket. That's exactly what's happening. So
Right.
that right leg, when I grabbed your knee originally, your left knee, what I was trying to get you to feel is that this, as you start turning, it's not doing this and moving all over the place. Imagine that your right leg is going to essentially stay right there. And as you turn, you're turning into, that's why your pants kind of crease like this. When I talk about that right hip line in the
Right.
video,
Right.
I'm talking about the right hip creasing, because you're just pivoting onto that hip socket. That's what you're trying to do. Yeah, exactly. But without that much rotation.
See, my problem is I've had 2 back operations. My neck fused. I've got a shoulder that I can't lift my arm any higher than this
Okay.
on this side. I've had this shoulder done.
Okay.
So I'm, in terms of I'm kind of a skeletal mess.
Okay.
So I've got to I've got to learn, and I do everything I can to be as supple as I can be. But shit, it is what it is.
I understand. I've
And
used
so-
C1 through 3. So.
Yeah. So did you get an internal decapitation?
Essentially, yes. I had a
Yeah.
Jefferson fracture. I had a C1 burst fracture.
What'd you do?
Axial load on top of my noggin.
Okay.
Biking. Went over the bars, I was dirt jumping a bike, and I came up short on this gap, and I flew. My bike my front tire hit the front of the ramp. My bike stopped. I didn't. And I kept flying into the lip, the transition of the jump, and I landed head first on this wooden and steel.
Good
ramp.
that you did.
Yeah, if I didn't do any shear force, I'd be dead.
Yeah. Never.
Or paralyzed.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Fortunately, you did this and
C1 just went
punched it out.
thunk.
Yeah.
And so I broke 2 places in the front and 3 in the back. And then I had a bunch of surgeries after that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was a mess. But yeah, I mean, we all have to find some, if there's compensations that you have to make, they're really easy. Because the movement really is nothing more than this. That's the whole backswing. So if there's something that's limited, yeah, that's it. You can do it.
So how the hell can I do that?
It's getting you to focus on the right things when you're holding that
Okay.
little thing and worrying about the little white demon, right?
Right.
But it's the little details that make the big difference.
Right.
This is where, like, everybody can do this, right? This is not rocket science to be able to sit here and do this. But when we start worrying about making a golf swing, we start thinking about what we think is a golf swing, we start making things that don't work. They don't work in the swing because we're not catching on to that right hip shifting over here, or your left knee buckling in. And all of a sudden, you've got all these compensations based on one little mistake. Like, you can have the tiniest mistake, like letting your right knee straighten up too much. Well, now, when I've got 70 degrees of hip rotation, how do I get rid of that in time? It's never gonna happen. That's why at impact, your legs are pretty much dead square.
Right.
Because you've turned all this way and fired your arms, your hips never have enough time to get out of the way.
Which is why the ball goes in.
Exactly. So it's learning how to fixate and focus on what's happening on the center first, your core, all the stuff that's happening in your body, and then everything else around that gets built on that. But if this is broken, which right now it's broken, you're overturning right away, and you're not shifting, you're reverse hip shifting. Well, I don't care where the club's at the top, or what your pinky looks like here, it doesn't matter. If this is broken, everything's broken. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yep.
So, set up again for me, and you're just gonna rotate just like you did, but now I want you to start feeling where your weight, I'm not gonna let your head move. Do it again. Where's your weight?
Heel,
There we go.
right heel.
Okay, we're good again. Now do
Okay.
that without your hips turning so much. I'm gonna keep the flex in your knee. Okay, where's your weight?
Right heel.
Give me a percentage, left or right.
Oh, 70-30.
Let's get 80-20
Okay.
again.
Okay.
There you had to shift your hip over, didn't you?
Yeah,
So that's that little tiny detail that seems like, it's no big deal. It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Because if you don't shift over there, your hips are going to move this way
Right.
every single time. And now how do I hit a ball from here? It doesn't work. So that's what I'm trying to get you to catch is that this, not your upper body. Yeah, it's almost like that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's a little bit of
Yeah,
a
but that's-
sit into that side, exactly. And if you look at, if you had a mirror here, you'd see that this hip isn't moving. And that's what it's gonna look like from your perspective face on. That's the key.
now,
So when you're practicing in here,
yep,
I would get something that you can put up against your right hip, whatever it is, if you make something, I don't know, whatever it is, like this, and as you're going back, this is gonna look like it never ever moves. This direction doesn't move, period.
Okay.
You just need something to sit up against your hip to give you a simple feedback.
okay.
So again.
I'll have the boys build me something.
Yep, exactly. Okay, your hip's moving way over here.
Is it?
Absolutely. This is why a mirror is invaluable. You gotta put a mirror right here. Yeah, here's the simplest way to do it right now. So keep going, and I'm going to video it.
How much bend can I get in my left knee?
How much bend can you?
Yeah, I mean, how much bend can I get without it being more than it should be?
Think about, instead of thinking about what your left knee is doing, it's all about hip rotation. Your left knee is responding, it's moving because it's being
Correct.
moved by your hip
That's my
rotation.
point.
That's what we care about, right? So
Right.
your hips should turn no more than 45 degrees, which is halfway, right? So that's very little hip turn, that's only 20 degrees, right? So you can turn your hips at 45 degrees and that's fine. I'm going to video your hips here so you can see. So go ahead and set up for me again. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted you to see. All right. All right. So did you feel like your hip stayed on that right hip line?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Because it didn't, did
No,
it?
not even close.
Not even close.
Yeah. See the line there?
Mhm.
I'm a little bit off. Put it right there. All right, now watch.
Holy crap.
Holy crap is right,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So now you're trying to be a baseball pitcher like this.
Right.
That doesn't work. So again, this is why the mirror is the best training aid in the world, because you could look in a mirror and have somebody put a piece of tape right there where you could see that piece of tape on the mirror, it looks like it's right on your hip, and you would see immediately you move away from that tape. Or, physically something up against your hip, a kitchen counter, you can go up the stairs. and sit
Before we
against
leave,
your
I'm
kitchen
gonna have you stick a piece of tape on my mirror out there, because again, I swing the club every damn morning.
The problem is you're swinging it a way that's grooving the wrong stuff, right?
That is correct.
And it's these little tiny, seemingly innocuous details that make or break a golf swing.
Right.
And every single lesson I've done on this RoadShow has all been the tiniest little things, like the left knee buckling in, simple little stuff that people have been grooving, doing the wrong things and not catching it. And that's why people have liked these lessons so much. Like, oh my God, I didn't realize how important this was. Because if you do this, that impacts that, and so on and so forth up the chain. The next thing you know, you're grooving the wrong stuff. To fix it, ironically, when you swing the right way, the way the rotary swing tour system is, it's the least amount of movement that you could possibly make. That's the beauty of it. You're actually just adding more complicated stuff to your golf swing. When you do it right, it's going to be simpler. It's going to be less movement. Because your hips just going to look like that. It looks like it stayed exactly the same spot.
Okay.
So just go ahead and set it for me again. Okay, better. Go ahead and set that. And now I just want you to start thinking about when you go back, 80% of your weight is going to be on that right leg when you go back. There you go. Keep that knee flex in there. There you go. Good.
Should I squat into it?
It's a good exaggeration to feel your glute activate.
Yeah, to
In the
just
real swing, you don't have to go
squat into
back
it.
that much.
Right.
Squat that. But yes, it's a great way to
Even if
make
you're
sure your
rolling.
weight's over there. Yeah, exactly. Right? So that's really what you're trying to do, is just kind of feel some load, some activation there, so you know your weight's over there. You should almost be able to pick this up without having to move very much. You see how much you had to move? Now watch, here's what you look like. Move a lot to move your foot.
Mhm.
If I move correctly, my foot's pretty light. I have to move a little bit,
Sure.
but it's not nearly as much. There you go. Better. Okay. One more time, stay up, start at address.
Good.
Okay, and go ahead. Now look at your hip. I didn't
Yeah.
move that shaft. There you go. There you go. There.
If I actually squat into it,
It becomes kind of natural.
yeah, then it doesn't feel like, I mean, then I'm not moving
Exactly.
it. Okay.
So that's the first key, is getting
Okay.
your lower body to be quiet, anchored, moving correctly.
Okay.
Then we can start worrying about when this isn't overturning, we can see where the club's going back. So
Okay.
go ahead and set up for me again. I want you to extend your arms out like you're at a dress. I want you to focus on this stuff.
Okay.
And I want you to just stop halfway back. Okay, stop right there. Now look at your right arm. Is it bent or straight?
It's bent.
It's bent. It needs to be straight at this point in the swing, yeah? If it's bent, what that means is that you've taken your left arm and pushed it across your chest.
Right.
So there's the center of your chest where your hand started, but now look how far they're out from under my arm.
Right.
You go back to address, they're right under my hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go back. There you go, so your arms stay perfectly straight.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole trick to the perfect takeaway is just don't move your arms. They elevate, they go in a little bit, but yours is going in a lot, and that's what causes you to fold and get that club ripped.
Just because my arm's breaking down.
And because your hips are overturning, right? So you think about it, watch this. If I let my hips turn a lot, what's to stop the club from going over? I'm just
Right.
opening up that doorway,
Right.
right? If this is staying anchored in and I don't move my arm, where's the club gonna go?
And it's going to the side.
It has no choice but to go in the perfect spot. And I just moved less. You're just adding more movement. That's all it is. So as you go ahead and take the club, now you're going to keep your arms straight and you're going to turn without your hips moving at all. First, what it's going to feel like. Stop right there. Where's your weight? Feel it?
Yeah.
Now, straighten this. Let's do it one more time. Turn. Shift your weight to the right. Look where the club went. It has no choice but to go right there. You just literally didn't do anything.
No, I didn't do squat.
Exactly. That's what it feels like.
Right.
But we feel like we've got to add all this hip movement, arm movement, all this stuff. It's really less movement than you think. Oh, same with hips turn there. There you go.
Okay.
Remember, the whole key in the backswing, the whole purpose is to create load in muscles that we want to use in the downswing.
Right.
The first thing that you're going to do coming down is shift your weight and begin to turn your hips.
Right.
These muscles are one of the biggest muscles that you're going to use to do that. So if you let all of this stuff turn, then these muscles don't get stretched. Right? So
True.
if you go back to address, and I hold your belt loop in here, you feel this waking up now?
Oh, yeah.
That's what you're going to use coming down. This is where your brain is going to be. But
Okay.
instead your brain is, what's going on with all this stuff, right? Okay, look at how much your hips turn.
Yeah.
It's kind of a goofy way to do this, but it does actually work.
Yeah, I actually saw Justin Rose doing this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was
I
doing
mean,
it
it's
the
kind of
other day.
funky, but if you do this, and then you have, since we got them, we might as well use them, right?
Yep.
It's all right, those two guys are parallel to each other.
Correct.
And when you go back, halfway back, let's keep them parallel. Now look at there you go.
So they're supposed to stay
They're-
parallel?
No, they're
Well,
going
but-
to turn. But you're going to pretend, you're going to feel and practice that they don't, that they
Right.
stay parallel, because
Right.
your hip will over-rotate, right? There you go. So now, when we have that working, we're just going to stop right here.
Good.
Okay. So there's our whole takeaway. And the less this moves, the more resistance and more stretch you're going to create over here. There you
Right.
go. And as you keep going to the top, you feel this start to
yeah,
wake up, right?
yeah, that's straightening out.
Then you're gonna use that to shift and open up your hips. And then this is gonna be about 30 to 40 degrees open at impact. So you can use this as a kind of a cheat stick to start seeing what your hips are doing as you
Okay.
rotate back. Half the back, stop it. There we go. Nice. Good. And watch your right hip. Right hip is way better there. Way better. Do you feel more load on the
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I don't like for you to rely on your feel unless it looks perfect in the mirror.
Right.
If it looks right in the mirror, then your right hip, and then you feel load, that's when you say, okay, that's what it's supposed to feel like. But it needs to look right first.
Well, it's all stretching my right hip right now. I mean, it feels like it's stretching.
Good. Good. Shift back to the left, using your left leg and left oblique to get everything going first. So you're going to pretend that your arms are left alone up here. You forget
Okay.
about your arms, and you worry about that muscle. There you go. And that is the trick to the downswing, is that this initiates it.
Any arm movement in the downswing at all? Any? I mean, is there any
For sure.
is there a muscular move, or is it all passive until you get to there?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Because that's the key for me.
Sure. You're going to feel that there's no muscular involvement,
Okay,
but you're going to use your arms. It would be impossible, if I put you on an EEG, it'd
Right.
be impossible for you not to use them.
right,
Because of everything's being ripped down by your lower body. These muscles are gonna fire, your lat's gonna fire, there's gonna be a lot of activation. You're going to swear that there's none. But as long as your lower body's working correctly and it gets out of the way in time, you can fire the arms. But right now, we have this ratio of this much hand movement during the transition and this much lower body movement.
right,
So we got a 10 to 1. We got to flip that. It needs 10 times more lower body movement and this much hand movement during that transition. And once those legs are posted up, you can fire your arms as hard as you want. You don't have to. You'll be shocked that when you do this right, you won't feel like you do anything with your arms, which is really the goal. But yes, you can use them, and you do use them. What I want you to feel, nothing but lower body.
okay. I'm good with that.
All right.
Because I think the thing, and Jeff is a good teacher, but he told me to use more arm. Well, the problem with using more arm is that it makes you,
Yeah, how much more arm can you use than what you're using now?
I mean, I use pretty good arm over there.
Yeah, you broke the club. You can't use any more arm. At the end of the day, as a doctor, you understand what the muscles do and how they
Right.
work, right? At the end of the day, we need to generate horsepower to move that golf club fast. It's very simple math. A certain amount of muscle fiber can create a certain amount of horsepower to move that golf club. You need about 32 pounds of muscle to generate enough horsepower to move that club over 100 miles an hour. That's the
Okay.
math on it, 32 pounds. You don't have 32 pounds of muscle in your arms and hands and shoulders,
True.
right? But your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads, your lats, obliques, you can recruit 32 pounds
See
of
my
muscle really
ass
fast.
down there.
Well, that's why we gotta get all
Well,
of
I
them.
did
What I had to keep going back there.
I bet.
Great. Told my wife, this is great. It's the first time my pants have ever fit.
So we want to start using those and activating those. There you go. So we need to recruit that muscle. Good. And then shift while you leave. Now, see your hands already got there.
Yeah,
You're
see?
posted up, right? Shift, post up. Oh. Leave your arms all the way up to the top.
Okay.
I'm going to show you how to get through this. Okay. So relax here. So when your hips are open, which we can check with this, about right there, right heel is going to be down on the ground. There
You want it
go.
down?
Yeah, it's going to be down. And this left knee's posted up where it's totally straight and your hips are open. Your hand should be right here. When you're looking in the mirror, you're going to see the back of your left hand is in front of your right leg. The club shaft should be parallel to the ground. And you're
Okay.
going to have this angle. That's how much your hands have to be behind the lower body. Because from here, your lower body did all the work to get your hands here, if you did it right.
Right.
And then all you have to do is just release the golf club. So this is what I'm going to have you feel. So go to the top. Now, I'm going to physically hold the club and help you get there. Use your lower body, shift and post up, and there's your hands.
Okay.
And this is what defines a low handicap or scratch golfer. Is this position is almost synonymously the same in every single tour pro. You have this angle, club shaft is here, you're posted up, your lower body did all the work to bring your hands to here. That's why I said you're gonna feel that your hands did nothing. Because if you used your hands, they'd already be way out here.
Oh, yeah.
And your pelvis doesn't have time to get out of the way. You're trying to move the biggest bone structure in your body. It's not gonna happen like that. You're gonna need some time, which is why we have to load these muscles up in the backswing to help them get the hips out of the way.
So the post-up maneuver is nothing more than straightening your knee.
It's pushing the hip up
Right.
and back, because you're opening the hip.
And that's really all there is.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing on this side. No push off.
You can.
I don't want that. I don't want, look, later if I really want some big power, if I really think
That's
I'm
what
gonna
it's
hit
for.
like the big boys, I'll work. Right now, I just want a consistent swing.
If you just focus on the left side and hitting that spot there, and don't push off the right at all, then you're gonna be just fine. You're gonna hit the ball further than you think you need to. If you really go to start jacking it up, again, you can drive off the right leg, but everything else has to speed up, which means everything else has to know how to work already really well, right? Your arms need to be in a great spot. You need to be able to know how to release the club. Otherwise, it's just gonna be out of control. So right now, all left side's what you're gonna feel.
Okay. Because I can tell you that's why I got a huge on my ass.
Push it
That's
off
how,
the right
that's,
side.
that's how I tore it. Because I was really looking for some power, and I'll tell you what, I hit the ball great. I mean, I hit it far,
I'm sure.
but
You don't.
it was at the expense of a breakdown.
Exactly. As you understand, injury prevention is at the heart of everything that I do. So you don't need to do that. If I'm going to wail on a driver, I will shove off the right foot and my right heel will come up. But I'm also knowing that I'm decreasing my consistency dramatically by doing that. But if it's downwind in a big hole and I'm swinging well, I'm going to go ahead and wail on it. But you don't need to do that for sure.
Okay. Heel, foot needs to stay down.
Here's the reason for that. So I talk about this in a bunch of videos when we talk about the readiness. All right. So this video, the roll of the right foot, the whole key to that is if my right foot's on the ground, my right heel, and it's rolled to the inside, this is key, with the proper stance width, it will roll to the inside. My hips can open only that far. So
Yeah.
how far can you open your hips? That's it.
That's it.
So how could you ever spin your hips open? You can't. So I use that right heel as a brake. You can turn your hips as far as you want. As long as that heel stays down, you can never ever spin your hips open. And that's why we do that. It's a control thing. As soon as this heel comes up in the air, there's nothing to stop your hips from getting like this at impact. And then
Right.
your hips are ripped wide open. So keeping that down is a big deal because now you know exactly how far you need to open your hips because you just turn them until you can't.
So let me ask you this, is part of DeChambeau's, I'm gonna say the good things that he does, I mean, the guy stands there like a post.
Honestly, I've never even really did a swing.
Look at his swing.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, he's using the same length club,
Right.
everything's same length except
Yeah.
when he gets to the driver. But he's standing there like a post, watching.
Okay.
It's interesting to me because in order to keep every angle the same with every club, you have to stand in a certain way and you have to hit it in a certain way. And he basically is a tripod.
Huh.
Like that. It's an uncomfortable swing.
Oh, really?
Looking at it, yeah, it's
Yeah.
very uncomfortable. Watch it, it's interesting. This is your job, so.
I don't watch golf.
No, but swing is your business, and
Yeah.
so it's just an interesting change in how to do things.
Yeah.
And I don't know where he's getting all his power, which is interesting. I mean, the kid obviously has a ton of power.
Yeah. Well, if you're not using, I mean, first of all, he's probably using his trunk more than
He
you
is.
would perceive.
He's a big kid,
Yeah.
so.
But at the end of the day, it's a ratio of things. You've got leverage, rotation, and width. That's the only things you can really create golf swings
Correct.
with, right?
Yeah.
If you've got a lot of leverage, like say Sergio Garcia, you've got a lot of lag in your swing, then your width is cut down. So you're relying on that leverage and the release of that leverage to make speed, and then you're going to make up for that with some rotation. So you look at Sergio at impact, he's rotated and his chest is turned a little bit more, right? Because he has a ton of leverage. You look at Davis Love III. Davis Love III has very little lag, actually. But he has a massively wide arc. Now, in his 50s, he's still one of the longest hitters pound anywhere on the tour, right? He swings 124 miles an hour. The guy's a beast, and he's in his 50s. And he has very little lag compared to somebody like Sergio Garcia. So when you create width in the swing, that's also where you can get speed. So, Bryson's swing, whatever it is, he's got some sort of combination of those things, which is probably a lot of leverage, because if you don't have a lot of body movement, then you have to make up for it with something else, right? And that's probably gonna be a lot of leverage, but I don't know.
Well, that's what Fleetwood's doing. He's taken the real wide swing.
My preference is always for width. If I had to choose to have a certain type of golf swing, it would be the widest freaking golf swing I could make, because width is free speed. You don't have to work to create width.
Right.
If I take that 7-iron or whatever, 6-iron out of your hands, whatever we got left,
Yeah.
it's not broken, and I give you a driver, and you move everything the exact same speed, the driver is going to go dramatically faster just because the radius of the arc is bigger. The length of that shaft is going to determine the swing speed.
Okay, so tell me then, what is gonna be a good, with my limited movement, what's gonna be a good distance for my backswing? Because that also, I mean, as you say, the width is gonna determine what I can do.
Yeah.
You see a lot of guys, they come, they stop, club still keeps going, and of course, these kids have tremendous, they are what they are. But I can't do that.
Yeah.
So what is a good, for me, what's the stopping point?
Perfect, let's find out. So go ahead and set up for me. We can take this out.
I don't know, I'm kind of liking it.
I'll give it back to you in a second.
Making me feel better.
My liability insurance won't cover me getting from the house. So what I want you to do first, put your arms across your chest,
Okay.
and we're just going to do our rotation. You're going to focus on shifting your weight over. There you go. Relax your shoulders. Okay. So right.
That's
Yeah. Well, that's a 90-degree turn. You don't want any more. That's it. Relax. Okay. Now, extend your arms out here to me. Yeah.
I can't extend it anymore.
That's okay. It's fine. Alright, so now with no momentum would push you back a little bit further,
Sure.
right? But that's going to be where you would practice. Momentum would bring your hands about up to here.
So basically my arm's parallel to the ground. I mean, that's what it feels like,
Well,
is it?
when you don't have any momentum, that's where it's going to be.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but if you add momentum, it's going to go up here.
Sure.
Okay, and that's perfect. You don't need to go back any further than that.
How
So-
much can I let my left elbow break?
Ideally, it's not going to bend at all. But if it has to because of some sort of physical limitation, just understand that at some point you got to try and get it back straight. So you're just adding more variability to the
I
swing,
understand.
right? So if you can keep it straight, that just takes out one variable out of the swing. But if you can't, it's no big deal. You just got to get it straight coming down.
Okay, then practice. Tell me about a practice swing. If I'm gonna just stand here and do practice swing,
Yeah.
this,
The biggest thing that you're going to focus on is not what you're doing with your arms. Because when you did this, you just started picking your arms up again, so now your turn got cut in half.
okay,
The most important thing for you is to turn, turn, there you go. And then let your arms, try it without your right arm, just your left arm, and see, go back to address. And I want you to turn and let your left arm swing up as you're doing that. I'm
okay.
gonna help you turn a little bit here. Okay, keep your head down there at the ball. There you go, do it again. Just pull your shoulder back, there you go, it's a big turn. Do it one more time. Okay. And bring your right hand up there as high as you can to meet your left. There you go, there's your backswing. Right up there. That's pretty darn high. That's as high as your hands ever need to go. But the trick is how you get them there.
Right,
You have less tension in your body when you're not trying to move the club with your arms and shoulders, right? When I had you focus on turning and just letting your left arm be swung by your body, your hand ended up here. When I had you do it with your right hand, you're like this.
right.
So what does that tell you? You've got to focus on turning your body to move your arms, not moving your
And
arms.
just let everything else do what it's gonna do.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's the trick, is reversing how you're thinking about it. It's swing my body swings my arms, and then my arms swing the club. If you have a club, you get fixated, you do it backwards, right? Everybody does. So instead of worrying about my body, I worry about the club, and then my arms do whatever I think the club should do, and then my body just follows along. It's got to be the exact opposite sequence of that.
Okay,
Body controls all. So do it again, left arm only. Swing your arms to the top with your body turn. Move it with your body. There you go. There you go. Your arm doesn't need to go up that high, so you can come back here though. And then your right hand comes up to support the left. Top of there.
Yeah.
There you go. And that's it. And that's plenty high. Now
Okay.
stay right there. Just put a golf club in your hand up here. You don't need to go back any further. You got all the leverage and speed that you need if your body's loaded up, to bring that club back down, and then you hit your checkpoint, right?
Okay.
That's where you're gonna be looking in the mirror, and then you just release the golf club. So the two biggest takeaways here, three takeaways.
Okay.
One, your lower body has gotta be a little bit more anchored, as you go back, and we start focusing on that right hip line. That video on the site literally called the right hip line, I think is what it's called, is what you're gonna be looking at in the mirror.
Okay.
Number two, body rotation. Body rotation, there you go. Instead of worrying about moving that golf club in your arms, you're gonna worry about rotating your rib cage.
Am I gonna worry about my hands? My hands are gonna do what they do.
They need to, for right now, they just need to be following your body. Now, you get a little long and loose, so what I would wanna do, is getting this dialed in, would be going through that 5 minutes of perfect backswing routine, because your
Right.
arms get a little too
Yeah.
loosey-goosey with it. But that's later on. We gotta get the big core movement stuff first. So the second thing, body rotation. The third thing is using this stuff to help bring you back down and letting your hands drop here and hitting that checkpoint in the mirror.
Okay.
Hands in front of this thigh, club shaft parallel to the ground, hips are open and posted up, right heel down.
Right heel down.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's gonna be the other hard thing.
Yeah. That make sense?
Oh, yeah. No, that don't make sense.
So, when you're practicing, those are the three critical things. You've got to get the stuff in the center moving correctly first. And then once that stuff's dialed in a lot better, then you start worrying about getting tighter with the arms, and because then that's where you're going to see another big boost in consistency. But the trunk has got to be right first. And this doesn't work. Being squared impact doesn't work, because then you've got to use your arms then, and you're never going to have any real power. So you want efficient power, you've got to recruit a lot more muscle, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Okay. That's lesson 2 in Orlando at the end of January.
Big turn, big turn. There you go. You're doing much better getting on your right hip now. Much better. Now use that left hip, left oblique, to get you back down. There you go. Leave your arms at the top and focus on feeling some power in your leg. There you go. You're used to doing this. Rah!
Yeah.
Trying to muscle it with your chest and your
Yeah.
shoulders, right? Let your arms and shoulders chill. All going to be in that left leg. There you go. Relax the arms, relax the wrists. There you go. So the big key focus for you when you start down is that your arms just kind of get a free ride. That's what you're going to feel. And your legs got to do a lot of work. They're going to really start jamming, especially that left leg. There you go. Still using your arms pretty hard, but that's where I would start dialing you in with the 9 to 3 stuff,
Yeah.
and just going through those checkpoints where your chest isn't turning and you're releasing the club a little bit better. But we got to get the big picture stuff first, and then you've got a few more things to start stacking on from there. But this, you got to start at the keys. Right hip lines, weight shift going back first has to be right. Core rotating, keeping this a little more anchored in, getting a big turn to move the arms for you, and then using that turn and these muscles you load up to bring you down.
Okay.
Once you got those, then we start stacking on more pieces. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it all makes sense. All you're gonna have to do is just follow me around the course.
Well, we can do that.
Let's talk about setup real quick.
Sure.
What's for my build? How far are feet apart?
Yeah, so the simplest way to do it, let me borrow your club for a second. You just drop a club, you find neutral, right? And then you obviously know exactly how to find neutral, so I won't go into detail about that. But from right here, that's neutral for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I go a couple inches outside of that, which is way narrower than people think.
Right.
But they're used to, right? If you can't keep your balance when you're standing with this stance with, it's because you're firing too hard with your arms from the top. It's knocking off balance. So you can go, you hold that club shaft right where your center of your hip socket is. Find neutral, you go a little wider. That's find neutral there, close to it. And then go a couple inches outside of that on either side, and that's it.
Okay. I feel better with a narrower stance.
You do,
I mean,
okay.
I've had people tell me take a wider stance.
Yeah.
I feel better with a narrower stance.
People who are telling you to take a wider stance, if you need a wide stance, your force of movement's coming from the top, right?
Right.
You're doing this with your arms and hands, and so you need a wide base to fight all that force that's pulling you off balance.
Right.
The opposite is true. What you really need to do is move from the ground up. You move from your lower body first, and if that's doing, and this is posted up, how would you ever fall off balance? You wouldn't. It's all force of movement that's going to dictate that. Should feel good. There you go. And the narrower your stance is, within reason, without being too narrow,
Right.
the easier it is to shift back over and post up.
Well, it's easier to get your hips back.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Shift and post up, there you go, and relax the arms.
That's gonna be the toughest thing.
The trick is, again, I can't tell you, just don't use your arms, that won't work. What I gotta tell you is focus on using that left side aggressively. Push that foot in the ground, use that oblique to be powerful and authoritative with your left leg. There you go. So you're gonna start to learn to hit the ball with your legs. There you go. Relax those arms. You're gonna start using leverage, not shoulders. There you go. Getting there. Good. So, need some time to practice these things, drill this stuff, get a mirror, be in front of that mirror, and watch these little things. You're gonna start, your eyes are gonna be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this, or whatever. But once you have that mirror work done, then you're gonna start seeing your body's working correctly, and the rest of the stuff's gonna start to fall into place.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
All right,
providing
Mark,
this incredible man cave.
Oh, yeah.